The chicken world can be brutal. But now they're bugging her again. Oh, I wonder what's up with that. I don't know. Watching these channels sometimes kind of bums me out. And I'll be completely frank and honest with you guys. I feel the same way. Or I used to. I used to feel the same way when I... Hi there, folks. I'm Sean the Modern Yeoman, and it's good to be back. Hi there, folks. I'm Sean the Modern Yeoman, and it's good to be back. There's a lot of new folks on the channel, and to those of you that are new, welcome to the Homestead, and welcome to the journey. Holly and Henry and I took a break last week from YouTube, and it was really nice to have our first kind of official outing as a family unit. That's one of the benefits of sharing a homestead with family. The Homestead was in good hands while we were gone. So thank you, Nana Jana and Mom and Dad, for taking the critters while we were on our first kind of little mini vacation as a family. Nope, not yet. Meet the teenage chickens. These guys I got them back in sometime in the fall. I don't even remember when we got these chickens. I think it was October that we got these chickens as chicks, and they are now officially big enough to join the flock. I'm going to be doing that later, probably at the end of this video. Also, Fortuna. You might remember Fortuna. She was the one meat chicken that we decided to keep on as an experiment to see if she would lay eggs, and she did. However, during the cold snap that we had, for some reason, she was getting just bullied mercilessly. Something to do with the cold. I have no idea what it was, but she was getting bullied, and she was bloody, and she was in really bad shape, and most of her feathers were gone here. The chicken world can be brutal. Chickens seem like innocuous, pleasant animals. They're not, at least to each other. And so she was probably on the verge of death in that cold snap. She wasn't with the rest of the flock. She wasn't eating. She wasn't drinking. So I put her in here with the teenage chickens, and she's recovered nicely. The question is, will the bullying continue when I let her out with the rest of the teenage chickens? And the answer to that, I don't know. I think, like I said, I think it had something to do with the cold because she was never bullied before. So we'll see what happens with her. For those of you that are somewhat new to the channel, we actually supplement the pig's food with spent beer grain that we pick up from a local brewery for free. So it's a nice way for us to kind of stretch our feed costs quite a bit. Instead of putting in like 3 scoops of pig feed, I'll only need to put in maybe 1.5 scoops and then fill out the rest of it with this spent beer grain. Speaking of pigs, we actually have a date that we're going to be processing them on the farm, a date that they'll be transitioning into freezerhood. It's going to be next month, and we're going to have some special guests here on the homestead to kind of show us how that's done. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be a big day. We're really excited because it's going to be a lot of meat with these 2 big boys. Also, I wanted to show you guys something kind of sad, kind of funny. You might remember that we've been keeping a kind of a mini greenhouse covering one of our greens beds for the duration of the winter. And it had been going great. We've been getting into the 30s, usually most nights, sometimes down into the 20s, and it had been working great. But as many of you know, down here in the southern United States, we had a bit of a cold snap around Christmas time. And it was a very cold snap. We got down to the single digits. And it was windy. And one of the nights, the wind peeled back our greenhouse frame on this bed here, on this greens bed. Maybe there was a hole about the size of a foot. Did the greens hang on through that exposure to the single-digit temperature? Take a look. They essentially turned into kimchi. They are no longer good. It was maybe an hour that they were exposed to that single-digit temperature. That was enough to just absolutely decimate these poor plants. Needless to say, I'm going to leave them and let them enrich the soil in this bed. Maybe I'll till them in, let them kind of break down a little bit more. So either way, it's going to be good for the health of the soil regardless, just letting them mulch here and sit in place. There are some things growing back, oddly enough. They're probably weeds. I don't know if they're actually kale or arugula or cabbage or whatever we had growing here initially. But it's sad, but it's also a lesson, man. Don't expose your greens to single-digit temperatures. It will just destroy them. I wanted to talk with you guys about something that I think merits a discussion, especially as it's a new year and I'm looking back on where we've been the past 2 years, where we're going in the next few years, the things I've done right, the things I've done wrong. It's also something that I think deserves maybe a little more acknowledgement in the homesteading YouTube world, community, whatever you want to call it. And it was sparked by a letter that I recently received. So again, I'd like to thank everyone that's new to the channel, new to our journey. We got several new subscribers, and I'm so grateful. We're all very grateful that you're here with us and you're following along with us. With that influx of new subscribers, we actually received several really thoughtful emails from folks. You can actually reach out to me at the Gmail address here that you see on screen. And we actually got a couple of emails that were specific to folks that were new to homesteading. They were kind of starting their homestead journey. They've bought property, and they're just kind of getting started with figuring out how they can do it, how they can kind of live a more self-sufficient lifestyle. And one of those notes really stood out to me. Sidebar, weird scat in the back pasture. Looks like it might be a cat. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys have some thoughts. Now, the person who wrote this note, I'm not going to share her name or her contact info, but I did ask her if she was okay with me sharing the note and talking about it. And she graciously said yes. So thank you to that person. You know who you are, who wrote the note. Essentially what she wrote, and I'll show you a portion of the letter here on screen. When you're getting into homestead, and a little bit of background, I think her and her husband have been doing the homesteading thing. They bought some property, and they've been doing it for about a year. And the ramp-up period, I think, had been a little more challenging than they anticipated. And so one of the things that she brought up was that watching these YouTube homesteading channels, like my own channel, and there's a bunch of other ones out there, really good content, can sometimes be intimidating. How do people have all these animals? How do people have all this infrastructure? And by the way, how are all these people affording all this stuff? Homesteading is not cheap. It's not a cheap endeavor. And so I think she was very nice, and she had a lot of awesome compliments for me, but I think the main thrust of her email was like, it's kind of frustrating seeing all this progress in this built out infrastructure, and meanwhile it seems like I'm kind of spinning my wheels. In other words, I think what she was trying to convey is that, and I don't remember the exact words of her email, but watching these channels sometimes kind of bums me out. And I'll be completely frank and honest with you guys, I feel the same way. Or I used to feel the same way when I watched people's insane progress over their homesteading journey. But recently that's kind of started to change a bit, and I want to talk a little bit about why. Here's the deal. The first year we were on the homestead, we got a lot done. We made a lot of changes. We fixed up a lot of stuff. We added a lot of new infrastructure. But the second year, this past year, we didn't get much done. We added turkeys and we added pigs to the homestead, but there was a lot of projects that just kind of sat on the back burner. Our tractor, unfortunately, needs to be fixed, and we just haven't had the time to work on it. There's an old shed in the close to our house that it's up in the woods that we've been meaning to knock that thing down and get all that junk removed. We haven't been able to get to it. There's a lot of brush that needs clearing that we just haven't had the time to get to. There is a temptation to really feel guilty about slowing things down a bit and not knocking out as many projects as I initially anticipated for this second year. But then I took a step back. We had a baby, for crying out loud. I took on a full-time job to help provide for that baby and my family. A full-time job that I'm often working 40 to 70 hours a week at. Should I feel guilty? No, of course not. I'm providing for my family. Yes, there's a lot of projects that I want to get done on the homestead, but guess what? The homestead's not going anywhere. Watching these YouTube homestead channels like mine, it can sometimes be tempting to think that you need this huge infrastructure right out the gate, that you need this whole menagerie of animals. And to those folks that can get started like that, more power to you. I think that's awesome. But for those of you that don't have those resources, that don't have that time, that's okay. I'm living proof that sometimes it's better to go slow. The whole motto of our channel is slowly, slowly. And I think the reason for that is because I'm trying to focus on moving forward, even if it's slow, even if it's incremental. It's so important to just move forward inch by inch instead of just sitting there stagnating. To those people that are watching these channels, like mine, like a bunch of other awesome content that's out there, you need to remember, those people, including myself, we didn't just jump right in and we were surrounded by a flock of animals and a hugely built out infrastructure. We had to work a lot, and sometimes for a long time. It's an ongoing process. I think the final takeaway here is this is about your family. This is about what your family eats. This is about what your family's goals are, your family's vision is. This isn't about social media or YouTube or who has the most animals or who has the biggest barn or greenhouse. This isn't about that. At the end of the day, this is about your family and your family's vision. At the very beginning, when I started this journey, I really was under the impression that I was supposed to do things a certain way. And as I've gotten further into this, I've started to realize that no, there's no rule book. You make the rules. What you see other people doing, they're making their own rules. So as I go into the new year, of course, there's going to be new animals, new projects, new learning experiences, but it's not going to happen all at once. It's going to happen slowly. Moving forward slowly is the name of the game here at the Homestead. Sometimes we're stalled a little bit. As long as we're not stagnating, as long as we're not moving backward. Speaking of moving things, we got to let those teenage chicks in with the rest of the flock. Hopefully they integrate well, fingers crossed. Let's go give it a shot. One more quick sidebar. We're actually going to be processing our remaining tom turkey, not this weekend, but next weekend or the weekend after. We had a lot of learning experiences on our first tom turkey processing day. It's a few videos back. It didn't go as planned. One of the things that we definitely needed was a giant barrel to dip our turkeys in. Our previous tom turkey was 47 pounds, about 50 pounds. This remaining one, I don't know if he's as big, but he's still a big boy. So we're going to fill this guy up probably 2/3 of the way with water. And I actually bought a hot tub warmer. You'll see it. I'll show the process. I'll experiment with it off of Amazon. I bought this thing. It's supposed to heat up water very quickly. I do have a propane burner that I'm probably going to put under this, but I'm worried that'll take too long, especially in the cold weather that we have. It might take hours to heat up, 30 gallons of water. So I'm going to try and use the propane burner in combination with this contraption, this hot tub warming element that you actually stick in the water. We'll see how that goes, but that should be a couple of weeks. Stay tuned. So it's now time to release the teenage chickens into the flock.
They are ready.
Dad is here to help. And so normally when you introduce new birds to an existing flock, there's trouble. The existing flock doesn't like the new birds, and they'll bully them, they'll peck at them, sometimes seriously injure them. So to help mitigate that, one of the things that I've done is I've been keeping them in this A-frame now for, 2.5, 3 months now.
I was going to say at least 2 months, maybe a little
Maybe
more.
2 months, we'll say, potentially more. So I've been keeping them in there to kind of just get them used to the flock and the flock used to them. They're not strangers. Granted, they haven't been right next to each other, but they've been on the other side of the hardware cloth from each other. So it's not a huge wild introduction for them. They are somewhat used to each other. The second thing that I'm going to do to mitigate, and Dad, maybe you'll be able to help me, is throw out some scratch grain to the existing flock and get everyone really excited and happy about the scratch grain, and kind of let this group out and this crew go out. Okay, we're on the far end of the, half acre that we have for their run, and Dad's starting to throw out scratch grain down here, and most of the flock is coming to collect it. So I'm going to go up and start working on the teenage chickens. I'm under the south lean-to, and it's very quiet. There's very few chickens. There's no chickens up here, so it's time to let them open. Let's see, guys. Come on out. And part of me wonders if they even will. Here they come. Come on out. Check out your new grounds, my friends. There's Fortuna. She's been here before. This isn't new to her, but these gals, this is all new for them. Come on out. So the teenage chickens are still gathered at the door of their current living situation. They're still a little spooked, but Fortuna, the beat-up meat chicken, she came running right down.
Oh, brownie.
Okay, shoot. You know what?
We might have to put Fortuna back. Or can you put the turkey hens in the A-frame?
I may put the turkey hens in the A-frame. For a second, they were leaving her alone.
Yeah.
But now they're bugging her again.
Boy, I wonder what's up with that.
I don't know. Still kind of a weird scene. Fortuna isn't really being bothered here, and the door's wide open. Teenage chickens are still kind of spooked, but there hasn't been any real big conflagrations. Now some members of the flock, especially the turkeys, are coming up. So it's not perfect, but I'm just gonna leave the door open tonight and, well, indefinitely now, and just let things play out. The teenage chicks are still here. They're kind of spooked.
They haven't quite figured out the whole emancipation proclamation.
Fortuna
there.
went out. She was kind of picked on a little bit, but she came back in here. Given the presence of the other new chicks, I hope that will dilute some of the bullying that Fortuna receives, hopefully. But in the meantime, I'm just going to keep putting the chick food. I'm going to keep putting the chick food in here. Keep their water source in here as well. And just hopefully let nature take its course and let the flock kind of establish its own hierarchy. Where are they? I think they're huddled back in. They're huddled back in there. Sorry, gals. You'll get there. You'll get out here one day. Well, folks, thanks for joining us today. As I said earlier in the episode, I'm so appreciative of all of you that subscribe to the channel and have followed our journey. Whether you've been with us the whole 2 years or you're just joining us, it's up and down. It's not always easy. It's usually not easy. And I hope that I was able to provide at least some encouraging words to those of you that are out there and kind of new to the homesteading world, and you're realizing maybe this isn't as easy as some of these homestead channels have cracked it up to be. I want to show that it can be hard, and that's what I'm trying to do here. And I'm also wanting to show that it's okay to take your time. It's okay to go slow, as long as you're moving forward. So, with all of that being said, remember, as always, slowly, slowly.